talked about these, it's really interesting. So you've talked about, on the positive side, how your system allows for these three things, the health of the workers, the health of the land, and the health of the people eating the food. How is it that in the way that we're, the way that we live normally, that's not engaging with this system, all the costs to the farm workers, to the land, the pollution, and then to our bad health, how come those things aren't factored into the price of the food? I mean, because I think that's another piece of this, I guess. I'm answering my question. But the question is, so here's my question, is how price competitive is the food that you make versus organic, conventional, and other ones? Because I think that's another area for this food justice, is how do we get to scale enough so that this is competitive?
Right. Well, the scalability, it's only a very small component of it.
Right.
If a chicken eats 10 pounds of feed, it will eat 10 pounds of feed even if it's 10 million chickens. That's not gonna, scalability is not gonna affect that. It's going to affect how that food gets to that place. But if you already factor into your design, cut off all the waste, you can only scale it up to a certain point before it falls back into the same problem of energy inefficient transportation and so on and so forth. So the true cost of food, here, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
We include the true cost of food in the final product. The difference is that we don't have a system that ensures that everybody else has to do the same. And so because others don't have to include the true cost of what they are selling, we look as uncompetitive price-wise. But
you said that, but I want you to break that down a little bit.
Yeah. I want to break it down into three pieces.
Okay.
Here's what happens: is the three bottom line equation. When you find a pound of chicken at 75 cents for a whole frozen bird from XYZ company, and you see the same next to it, our chicken at $3 a pound. The difference is this product is subsidized, ours is not. That's the only difference. It's not that it costs them less. How do they pay for their subsidies? The biggest one is the ecological devastation, because they don't have to do all these things. They don't do all these other things we do, and they don't have to pay for it because there is no government or no consumer that actually nails them to the wall when they cause that sort of devastation that affects us all, by the way, not just them. That's one big piece of how that chicken can be 75 cents. The next big one is that they did not pay, and in fact, most of them never even pay any of the labor associated with their processes. We have every year case after case of people who come to us wondering if we could go and help them with lawyers so that they can go collect their paycheck, because when they went to collect their paycheck, they were met with a shotgun. And that's in Owatonna. That's not down in Chihuahua or somewhere in Honduras, That's another huge way we let those companies fool us and create the illusion that somehow chicken is 75 cents a pound. And the third one is that we allow our government to pay them with our own money that we pay through taxes. That's why it's that way. It has nothing to do with efficiency or competitiveness.
So then how, as a consumer, so I consume a fair amount of chicken, what are things that I could do to, because I think, because this is the two pieces. There's the producers and the consumers, and there's a powerful role for the consumers in this, both in the education pieces, and to have this kind of broken down and understand the injustices and actually just the horrific things that are happening in the name of 75 cents a pound chicken. So what are some things that we can do? Because as you talked about, this is a huge market for chickens. I mean, for just one of these chickens.
Right. Well, here's what happens. To make it possible for these families to walk from where they are today to a new situation where they control and own the processes to get our food to our tables, we need to address three fundamental problems. First one is access to land. That access to land can be addressed through different strategies, primarily by partnering with established farmers and making, other kinds of lands accessible to them. So anyway, land is the first one. The second big piece is technical assistance and training, but not just training in TA as in generic, but in a system that actually delivers for them and delivers for the consumer. We have now created a curriculum and a training program that has the foundation for that new system to emerge. We need to now replicate it, expand it, and give it to anybody who wants to use it. But we first have to test it for a couple more years. Mm-hmm. And then the third piece is actually where John Janitas is heavily involved now, and we have come to some conclusions on what shape some of these alternatives are going to take, and that is in the financial infrastructure. We, as Main Street Project, are in the business not only of breaking the barriers and transforming the structures that create these conditions that we are addressing, but also in designing and launching the systems that are valid in replacing what we are breaking down. Like I said before, you can't break a bridge because it's no longer holding people across. You have to rebuild it, and you have to know what it's going to look like. Otherwise, you better just stick to the one that is broken, because maybe if you can just hold it, people still get through. But if you get to removing that barrier, you got to put a new one. We propose that we have now the solutions, at least in context and in the strategy and the specifics of access to land, access to technical assistance training, and now coming along with a robust proposition on how you as individuals can participate, especially in the financial aspect of this, through three ways. One, of course, go to Minnesota Give and give to Main Street Project. We need this support for our institution. There's no way we can do this work if I can feed my own kids, and Neil and all of us can pay our way through. And again, you get a good return on your investment because we work 24/7. So that's one thing. Second one, Jan Janitas and other partners we're working on a structure to create a revolving loan fund that will serve as a bridge, so that as people go through this process, especially this new system, that new program that we are launching now called the Agripreneur Incubator. Remember, the lack of structures in the presence of discriminating structures is what makes it almost impossible for these folks to move through. One of those is access to land, but technical system financing and other things, right? So the Agripreneur Incubator is just a small example on how we are going to bridge that so folks can walk and then launch themselves at the other end as farmers. But somewhere in there needs to be that piece. So the investment fund will help them through that process. It's not intended to replace existing financial institutions, but grow people into a more marketable condition. And then I forgot the third one, but it will come back. I guess if you do any of those, we'll be more than happy. So.
Well, no, I think this is an interesting piece, and this maybe get to the third one.
Sorry.
No.
Because I just remembered. We need people to consume these products as well. So we are setting up direct drop site systems, and then whenever we get to distribute it to the co-ops, hopefully you will pick this kind of poultry, and it will be perfectly labeled. There is going to be no way you can get confused. But for now, we need volunteers to coordinate drop sites and customers to come to those drop sites. So either way, you will be very valuable. So
no, that was exactly the question, because one of the things, just to take my simple example of the of my own life. So we had this hobby farm, like you said, busy, lots of different activities. But one of the things, that didn't work out. 20 years later, I saw this idea around CSAs, community supported agricultures. And one of the things that I liked about it, they have its own issues, but one of the things I liked about it was a way for me as a consumer to tie my my harvest and fortune and future to the farmer. So it was a way that I could be in direct relationship. So I'm glad you mentioned the consumer in this, because I think that's an important piece that we have to train consumers about, the real cost of what healthy chicken that's healthy for the environment, for the workers, and for me as a consumer, what it really costs. We have a retraining that has to happen for consumers who've been living in this bubble of 75% chicken, 75-cent chicken that's actually unhealthy for everyone all around. But that's the world we've been living in. So I'm really glad you have this consumer loop where I can buy directly from the producers.
And at this point, is the only way to make it affordable, sustainably, economically for everyone.
Right.
Because otherwise, if our poultry were to go to the co-op right now, it would have to retail for about $4 a pound. I mean, we may be socially conscious and all that, but you know, when you pull out your checkbook and you only got a certain amount of money left in there, you're not going to buy that chicken. So reality is reality at the end of the game. And one way to get around that situation is to go directly, because then you can connect. But he's limited. Let's remember that he's limited. It's important to do, and we need to get to the next stage. To get to the next stage, we need the investment fund to be successful. We need our TA and training to grow to a scale so that we can actually get more farmers involved and more farmers out of conventional systems, so that their chickens start to show up at $1.25. And now suddenly there is a new way of consumers to get educated about this.
Well, and I thought of another way that we can get involved, and we can talk about that in a minute. I also want to make sure if there's questions that arise, because it's interesting because as I'm sitting right here, we have this very detailed, kind of very intimate conversation about something that's very, very technical. And I forgot there's a whole bunch of people out there for a minute there. But before that, I think the other thing is as individuals, consumers, we have to raise, it's our responsibility to start identifying and raising the issues around these externalized costs, these costs that are not right now associated with the chicken. So what is the cost of a polluted Mississippi River? Because right now that's not borne in the cost of our chickens. It's a societal cost that we all pay, but it's not associated to the various things, and that's what allows for artificially low prices. Or the cost, how do we identify and how do we make sure that the cost to those workers, I mean, you gave some very dramatic examples, but we all know already that the working conditions and the working wage is of poverty level for most agricultural workers. You know what I mean? So that's another way that we as consumers can help to bring awareness to what are those other costs that are just floating out there and having them associated with the products that are done in a conventional way.